Australia. Land of endless sunshine, turquoise waves, and the kind of beaches that feel like postcards come to life. But lately, something's been off. The skies are still blue, the water still sparkles, but beneath the surface, panic is brewing. Families are packing up early, lifeguards are overwhelmed, and experts are quietly sounding alarms because the very coastlines once called paradise are now scenes of rising chaos. It started with a stench. Deception Bay, Queensland. Early morning. Locals walking the shoreline noticed something strange, an odd, sour smell drifting on the breeze. Then the tide came in, and everything changed. By 10 a.m., the beach looked like it had been carpeted in gelatin. It wasn't sea foam, it was jellyfish. Thousands of them. Their pale, translucent bodies stretched out for hundreds of meters. The sand squished underfoot. The air reeked of decay. The ocean? Completely off limits. And this wasn't a one-time freak event. One by one, beaches along the eastern coast, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, even parts of Sydney, began reporting similar swarms. Massive jellyfish blooms. Tourists canceled plans. Warning flags went up. Lifeguards were pulled into full-time triage. But here's the kicker. These jellyfish, Costylus mosaicus, also known as blue blubbers, are considered mostly harmless, mildly painful at worst. So why did everyone panic? Because locals knew what always follows them. And that's when the real trouble began. One weekend later, the swarms returned. But this time, they didn't float in quietly. They attacked. Over just 48 hours, more than 5,000 people were stung along the Queensland coast. Paramedics flooded the beaches. Makeshift medical tents popped up next to lifeguard towers. Swimmers staggered out of the water, clutching limbs. Children screamed. Adults collapsed. The culprit? Blue bottles. Also known as the Indo-Pacific Portuguese man-o'-war. These aren't jellyfish in the traditional sense. They're siphonophores. Colonial organisms with tentacles that can reach 10 meters and venom that can trigger anaphylactic shock. Their stings aren't just painful, they're disabling. Veteran lifeguards called it an epidemic. Entire beaches were shut down. People were getting stung just by walking barefoot on the sand because even a detached tentacle can still deliver venom. And here's the most terrifying part. This wasn't a rare incident. Since December, over 22,000 bluebottle sting cases have been recorded, triple the usual rate. Experts were stunned. Something had changed. Ocean currents? Temperature shifts? Maybe both. But the outcome was clear. Australia's waters weren't just dangerous, they were becoming unpredictable. If bluebottles are the opening act, the headliner is even worse. Box jellyfish. Almost invisible in water. Almost always fatal. February 2015, Townsville. Lifeguards spot ghost-like shapes near the shallows. At first, they think it's sea debris. Then one washes ashore, and they see the cube-shaped bell. Panic. These are sea wasps, a species of box jellyfish with venom so potent it can stop a human heart in under 2 minutes. The warning was immediate. If it's over 6 inches, it can kill. These aren't exaggerations. Since records began in the late 1800s, box jellyfish have claimed at least 79 confirmed lives, and likely many more. Some victims never even make it back to shore. In northern Australia, box jellyfish season used to be predictable. Now, they're showing up earlier, in larger numbers, and further south. Beaches, once safe year-round, are suddenly posting stinger warnings in April. And Darwin? Once protected by a $30,000 jellyfish net system, it gave up maintenance in the 80s. Too costly, too easily destroyed. Now, the waters are wide open, not just to jellyfish, but to crocodiles too. And when locals say they'd rather face a croc than a box jellyfish, they're not joking. At least with a crocodile, you can see it coming. Marine scientists started noticing a disturbing pattern. These stings weren't happening just during peak jellyfish season. Some were weeks, even months off schedule. Stinger nets couldn't keep up. The old migration charts didn't match anymore. Then came the sea snakes. 7 sightings, 7 beaches, all in 1 week. Yellow-bellied sea snakes, deadly, ocean-dwelling reptiles usually found far offshore, began washing up on family beaches in Queensland. Some were alive, some barely clinging to it. Experts blamed warm currents and freak weather systems. But one thing was certain, These snakes shouldn't have been there, and they weren't alone. Shark attacks began rising in strange places. Byron Bay, Ballina, even Sydney Harbor, places not on any most dangerous beaches list. Over 50 attacks in just a few decades, nearly 20 were fatal. And they're not always surfers out in deep waves. Sometimes it's swimmers, chest deep, or snorkelers in seemingly calm lagoons. Because where people gather, predators follow. And Australia's beaches are getting crowded. But just when everyone thought they had memorized the marine threats, the land started to change. January 2024, satellite images of Rainbow Beach in Queensland revealed something strange. The shoreline had shifted, dozens of feet inland. Entire dunes vanished overnight. Lifeguards called it the breathing beach. You'd lay a towel in the morning, come back hours later, and the landscape had transformed. Then came the sinkholes. In May, a 300-foot-wide collapse swallowed a caravan at Inskip Point. No injuries, but terrifying proof that the beach itself was no longer stable. Geologists investigated. What they found was worse than expected. Underground water channels, some stretching hundreds of meters, were silently eroding the sand from beneath. They called it subterranean liquefaction, accelerated by rising tides and storm surges. Beaches were literally being hollowed out. In Broome, a similar collapse happened right near a tourist boardwalk. Locals reported a sulfur smell beforehand, something geologists later linked to possible gas release from rotting marine biomass underground. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. Australia's beaches weren't just dangerous to swim in, they were dangerous to stand on. Further offshore, the silence is deafening. February 2025. A dive team surveying the southern edge of the Great Barrier Reef made an eerie discovery. Silence. Reefs are usually loud. Fish chatter, shrimp clicks, the hum of a thriving ecosystem. But this zone was completely quiet, like the reef had shut down. What they found confirmed their fear. Massive coral bleaching. But not just that. Beneath the dead coral, jellyfish. Thick curtains of them. Some reached 80 feet deep, layered like living drapes, floating where fish nurseries used to be. One diver described it as invasion-level occupation. Another put it bluntly. The predators are gone. The survivors have taken over. Jellyfish, sea snakes, blue bottles. These species don't just survive in broken ecosystems. They thrive in them. They love warm, low-oxygen waters. They multiply faster, feed on chaos, move into dead zones and claim them. And without predators to keep them in check, they take over. Marine census data from 2025 shows a sharp drop in baitfish, sharks, rays, and dolphins, up to 40% in some regions. Some dive sites now resemble ghost towns. One researcher in Cairns even documented a new species, 10-foot tentacles, translucent dome, moving against the current. Her notes: "This thing wasn't drifting, it was hunting." That specimen hasn't been verified, but the fear is real, because while we're watching lifeguard flags and tide charts, the ocean is shifting beneath our feet. And just when you thought the worst was behind you, comes the threat you can't even see: Buruli ulcer. Now it's showing up on Australia's beaches. The bacteria, Mycobacterium ulcerans, doesn't sting, doesn't smell, doesn't warn you. It enters through a scratch, a bug bite, a blister. Then it melts flesh. In 2022, Victoria reported 266 confirmed cases, most around the tourist-packed Mornington and Bellarine peninsulas. Some cases went undiagnosed for weeks. The infection spreads slowly, then rapidly devours tissue. Treatment can involve months of antibiotics and sometimes skin grafts. There's no vaccine, no surefire prevention, and no signs posted on the beach, because it's not a creature. It's a phantom hiding in the sand. Jellyfish swarms, snake sightings, collapsing beaches, coral silence. Invisible infections. This isn't just one freak season, it's a pattern, a system unraveling. Rising ocean temperatures, shifting currents, destabilized coastlines, all feeding a new marine reality where the resilient survive and the rest vanish. Once, Australia's beaches were a promise. Now, they're a warning sign. And the only question left is this: will we recognize what's happening before the ocean delivers its final warning? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever experienced something unusual at the beach? Did you ignore a warning sign? Or catch one just in time? Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because this planet is changing fast. And some places aren't waiting for us to catch up.
Next time, we go even deeper.